Peter Blackwood. Welcome back to Icon Diary. Today I am talking about an icon I have been painting. Because usually I show scenes of me painting my icons, but in this video I'm talking about the finished icon and about the icon on which it is modelled. But first, I chose to paint this icon as a gift to the chapel of Pilgrim College, the theological college of the Uniting Church here in Melbourne. The chapel has a number of artworks and a number of icons, but some of them are made from prints of old and famous originals. One of these is a cropped version of the Virgin of Vladimir. It is soulful and beautiful, but it is not an icon of paint on wood. So I'm offering my icon as a replacement to the photo icon. There is something particular about an original painting. As an example of a comparison, it is significant that the invention of photography did not put an end to painting portraits. Art galleries could display wonderful and accurate photographs of the best and most famous works of art from across the world and across the ages, but they don't. They hang original works of art. It seems to me that we, particularly in the Western churches, are content sometimes to hang photos of famous icons in our sacred places. So my message is that this can serve as a point of reflection and worship, but would urge the church to consider commissioning icon artists to paint new icons. There's something more immediate that paint presents that a photo doesn't. So, that's enough of my photo of icons rant. Let me say something about the original famous Virgin of Vladimir that was the model for this new icon. And I'm reading this piece from David Talbot Rice's book, Russian Icons. So in the book by David Rice, Russian Icons, he wrote back in 1947, he's saying this of the icon of the Virgin of Vladimir. Its exact date is not known, but if it is hardly to be assigned to the age of Vladimir, that is 980 to 1015, it is at least mid-11th century in date. In the absence of other panels of comparison of the mosaics and wall paintings of the age suggests that it came from a Constantinople and not a Russian workshop. It must have been taken from Constantinople to Kiev, probably early in the 12th century. For we know that in 1155 it was carried from Kiev to the city of Vladimir by the Grand Duke Andrew Bogolovsky in order that its miraculous powers might be of benefit to that town. From there, its renown spread, and it soon came to be reverenced as the holiest treasure of Russia, the wonder-working power of which was in repeated demands to bring protection in time of battle or to aid in averting natural catastrophes such as lack of rain. In the development of Russian art, it played a no less important role. It constituted the model for a whole series of copies throughout the following centuries, the most important of which is one attributed with every degree of probability to the hand of Rublev. However, it was responsible for the conception in much of Russian art of the Virgin and Child as an intimate, tender and delicate group with nothing of that awe-inspiring austerity which is met so often in the eastern part of the Byzantine world and sometimes even in early Italian painting. At the end of the 14th century, Our Lady of Vladimir was transferred to Moscow, and though it was in times at times taken elsewhere for short intervals so that its power might be exercised for the benefit of other towns. Its home was established there in the Cathedral of the Assumption until 1919, when its thorough examination and cleaning were undertaken. Numerous successive layers of repainting were removed, which has been added repeatedly, often by very distinguished painters. Only the faces of the mother and the child and certain details are actually to be assigned without doubt to the original work, but the general scheme has been preserved, and enough remains to show the glorious quality of this early painting. Its dignity and its tenderness are outstanding, and the delicate glory of the faces alone seems to distinguish it as one of the foremost religious paintings of the Christian world. The iconographical type of this painting was one well known in the Byzantine world, though no other panels of as early a date as the Vladimir icon are known. Mosaics and work in precious metal have survived from an even earlier age which show it. The type is known as Elusa in Greek, Umeleni in Russian, and I probably got that pronunciation incorrect. That is to say, tenderness. The child looks up at his mother and presses his cheek against hers. She is obviously preoccupied in her love for him, even though she gazes towards and not at him. The conception is distinct, and the austere manner of certain Byzantine or later Russian works, where the two figures become virtually monuments of adoration, wherein human affections and all-embracing love are allowed to play no part, it completely divorced from the conception that we see here. It was at one time held that this intimate conception was due to Italian influence in Russian art, but researchers of the last 30 years or so show that a tender, compassionate understanding was by no means foreign to the Byzantine style. So where we see this conception in Russian or later Greek works, it must in general be attributed to Byzantine descent and not to influences from Renaissance Italy. I have wandered around the internet in search of other information. I found, for example, its dimensions. It's 104 centimetres by 69 centimetres. It's about 3 times larger than my version, which is 30 by 23 centimetres. For much of its life it had been covered by metal decoration, a ritsa in Russian or an oklad in Greek, with only the faces and the hands showing. In retrospect, these were a really bad idea. They did not protect the paint. Indeed, they helped destroy the art. It's a matter of taste, of course, but I think they were a really bad aesthetic idea too. This ritsa for the Virgin of Vladimir is truly horrible. This is what I think it might have looked like with the ritsa added, but because icons were covered with linseed oil, which darkened with time, it would have looked more like this. Truly horrible. I guess it was a way of trying to make the icon look special before they were capable of modern day restoration, or varnishes that didn't blacken. Painting this icon has helped me understand some features of its design. Certainly the postures of the figures and their gazes. Jesus looking at his mother looking at and in some ways beyond us, we the observers. I tried imposing some modern design tests to assess why this icon is appealing to us artistically. Firstly, the thirds rule, to see how its composition works. I notice how much of both figures come in the centre third and how close Christ's head is to the top third line. I also tried to see how the Fibonacci sequence worked. Well, first in one direction, which worked for the sweep of Christ's posture and the Virgin's hands. In the other direction, it worked really much better for the design of the head and the mother of the child. I also noticed how the brighter shape of the body of Christ works. It also looks for any features. I also looked for any features of balance and realised how the colour and shape of the sleeve decoration matched the colour and shape of the Virgin's head veil decoration. As David Rice points out, the tenderness Theotokos has been a popular subject in iconography, and I looked at one attributed to Rublev and noticed particularly how he balanced his image, using the mother's hands. He also has her looking not out at us, but across the top of the child's head, maybe reflecting on the prophecy of Simeon in Luke's Gospel. Luke says, "Then Simeon blessed them and said to his mother Mary, 'This child is destined for the falling and the rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be opposed, so that the inner thoughts of many will be revealed. A sword will pierce your own soul too.'" Let me say something more about the icon I painted. While I used the original Virgin of Vladimir icon as my primary model, replicating its structure and design as closely as I could, I used another copy I found on the internet to help with colour. Especially I liked the dark purple of the Virgin's garment, and I used ultramarine blue mixed with Ercolano red to attempt to mimic this. The same mixture with less red was my choice for the centre wrap and sash for Christ. For the main part of Christ's clothing and the decoration of the Virgin, I used yellow oxide with a little unbleached titanium, then burnt sienna for the heavy outlines and details, and Ercolano red for the hatching. In one commentary on the icon, it said that the sankia, that is the dark shadow background for the faces and hands, was a dark green and the child's face slightly lighter in the highlights to better show his youth. The version I had used for my colour model had noticed this difference too, but had used a redder sankia for Christ. This, I thought, was a good idea, so I used raw umber green for the Virgin and burnt sienna for Christ. And for the highlights in both, I did my usual yellow ochre with a little Ercolano red and terra vert, a little unbleached titanium to help the coverage, and then progressive amounts of titanium white for the layers of lighter and lighter highlights. I am pleased with the effect that the different sankias gave me. The gilding which I applied first is 22 carat medium pressed transfer gold on gesso coloured with burnt sienna and sealed with acrylic varnish. The halos and the inscription are also burnt sienna. Well, as to details, the Virgin's eyes in my icon are slightly wider than either of the models. The colour model put a sandal on Christ's right foot. A feature of some copies is a sandal on the right foot and the left sandal falling off the infant's other foot. A nice touch of humour. But as the original did not indulge in such hilarity, I left him barefooted. Besides, if I wanted to be funny, I would probably have given him knitted woolen booties. This icon presented its normal challenges, but added to this one is the very many very fine lines in the hatching and the clothing decorations and the clothing border outlines. They are really so fine and long and straight. These required a steady hand and a pure heart, and I come equipped with only one of these, and sometimes my hand gets shaky too. Anyway, my thanks to my number 0 Kolinsky brush that worked overtime on this project. Thank you for watching.